Welcome to this week's episode of Raising Healthy Mothers. I am just coming into my final week with my January resetters and it has been brilliant. They've loved the longer format. We've taken one meal every single week and really focused in on that meal. And for many of them, it's revealed the meal that they most need to work on, which is often not the one that they would have assumed right at the start. But way back in week one, when we were focusing in on breakfast, I made a really throwaway comment about how breakfast has been hijacked by capitalism and the patriarchy, which has meant that we just don't prioritise breakfast the way we should. Well, that little throwaway comment caused a complete stir, and we ended up having a really long, lovely discussion about it. So in this episode, I thought I would dig a little bit deeper into what I meant when I said that and why I am on a one-woman campaign to make breakfast important again. In short, capitalism and the patriarchy have completely reshaped the way we think about breakfast. Because let's be honest, who has the time to sit down and eat a proper breakfast these days? We grab a cereal bar, we might shove some toast in our mouths, maybe eat some cereal dregs while chasing the toddler out the door. Or maybe we just skip it altogether and rely on caffeine until lunch. And sometimes we even feel virtuous for it. Maybe because we've saved ourselves some calories, or because we've read that fasting is good, so we've done it without even planning to do it. Or maybe we feel a little bit guilty that we aren't fueling ourselves properly, with a nagging suspicion that maybe that's the reason why we feel so exhausted by 10 a.m. And so we decide, okay, I'll do better tomorrow while you're making another cup of coffee to see your way through the day today. But it's so much bigger than just a personal failing. It's systemic. It's so much more than just you. Because the undermining of breakfast as a meal to sit down and take time over is absolutely traceable back to the intersection of capitalism and patriarchy. And so that's what this episode is all about. I'm going to get into this. So first of all, capitalism. That big machine that prioritizes productivity over everything else, including, apparently, just taking 10 minutes to sit down and eat before you go out the door to work. Breakfast used to be a proper meal, something you sat down for in a communal or personal moment of nourishment. But then capitalism came along and said, nope, no time for that, you got work to do. Efficiency became so much more important than leisure, and meals became squeezed into whatever tiny pockets of time that were left, with breakfast being the biggest sacrifice. And that's where the food industry sweeps in, because suddenly breakfast needed to be quick and easy to fulfill that need to get out the door quickly, right? And that meant processed, packaged, ready-to-go food. Things like cereals, cereal bars, instant porridge even. Porridge doesn't take very long to cook, but we want it now, so we make it more instant, more processed. You know, whatever can be eaten in 5 minutes or less. Except we shouldn't be eating in 5 minutes or less. It's not great for our digestive system. Our mouths, our jaws need to chew so that our mouths can develop properly, so that we can breathe properly. It's not just about getting food, from our plate and into our stomachs. Our mouth is so much more than that. And when we just eat things without properly chewing or really paying attention to it, our body doesn't actually know what to do with it. If you're often bloated first thing in the morning and you think, meh, breakfast isn't for me, actually, it's probably your digestive system going, you ate too fast, that's not real food, I don't know what to do with this, I'm going to make you feel bloated so you can stop. And the marketing of breakfast food that went into it is absolutely genius, especially in the 90s. Adverts would tell us that cooking a real breakfast was outdated, it's what our grandmothers did, and now we can be really efficient and just pour some stuff into a bowl and pour milk over the top and we're done within 5 minutes. And look, I know we're busy, but why are we busy? Because capitalism favours work over family. And so we as mothers are just so busy rushing everyone off to childcare, to school, to work, with this very set deadline of when we have to be there, when we have to get to places. And we've just accepted this as normal without questioning why we don't have time for something as basic as eating first thing in the morning. The systems around us just don't prioritise our well-being. And then the second system that is really sabotaging our breakfast is the patriarchy. Traditionally, food preparation, especially breakfast, has been seen as women's work. Except with more women entering the workforce, the expectation to handle meals hasn't gone away. No one else is there to kind of make our breakfast for us. So we've now got double work, right? We've got to work full time and we've got to make sure everyone's fed. and out the door at a certain time. And so naturally something has to give. And of course, it's breakfast. And hence that heavy advertising on cereal being an effective and apparently nutritious way to fill the gap that lovingly prepared, slow-cooked meals of old has. And to make things worse, patriarchy has spent years devaluing domestic work. Cooking's not seen as real work. Sitting down with your family for breakfast, that's a luxury, not a priority. So instead of recognizing the importance of meals, we get this idea that skipping breakfast or eating on the go or just surviving on coffee is like some kind of badge of honor. And then there's diet culture. The same system that devalues meal prep also tells us that breakfast should be light, or we should skip it, or we should fast. Because, women should be eating as little as possible. Don't overeat. You don't have time for that. Plus, if you can skip it, all the better. So instead of a solid meal, we're sold meal replacement shakes, breakfast bars, or just the idea that being hungry is normal. Do you remember that atrocious Special K diet? Was it the early noughties? I don't know about you, but despite everything I know about diet and nutrition, and I have studied this for years, every now and then I do think to myself, maybe I should just go and buy some Special K and I'm done with it and I don't have to think about 2 meals a day. What an incredible marketing move. What better way to encourage hordes of women to buy multiple boxes of the stuff every single week. So what does this all mean? Basically, we have been conditioned to see breakfast as either something that is quick, we just a quick refuel, it's not something to spend time over, or maybe it's even something to be avoided altogether. And while the twin systems of capitalism and the dominance of the patriarchy have made convenience accessible to us, they've also completely eroded cultural traditions around eating and reduced the perceived value of taking time to start the day properly well fed. And that's a problem, because breakfast isn't just about food. It's about starting the day nourished. It's about having the energy to see you through the morning, and even better, if you can manage it, stay connected with the people around us, the people that matter. So what can we do about it? Well, first, let's recognize what's happening. Let's recognize that the systems around us don't encourage slow, intentional meals. And that doesn't mean that we can't do something about it, though. It could be as simple as just prioritizing breakfast, even if it's just 10 minutes to sit down with a piece of toast and peanut butter and a cup of tea. It's about reclaiming the idea that feeding yourself well matters. Because look, unlike men, we do not operate on a predictable 24-hour cycle. We operate on a monthly cycle that sees our energies ebbing and flowing. And when we can embrace a slow morning, we get the opportunity to truly see that change in energy and adapt to it. See what our life could look like if we can notice when our energy is high and low. And look, if you're in the stage of life where breakfast still looks like just shoving something in your mouth while standing or on your way to work, that's okay too, because this isn't about perfection. It's about shifting the mindset. It's about noticing that this is happening, acknowledging that rushing isn't our fault, and knowing that we deserve to eat well, even if the system doesn't make it easy. So what do you think about it? I'd love to hear your thoughts. Have you thought about it? Do you ever wonder why breakfast has become this one meal of the day where we kind of get away with not really eating what we would consider a balanced meal? Do you ever sit down for breakfast, or are you always in survival mode first thing in the mornings? I'd love to know. Come and chat with me over on Instagram. I am at Tasha De Cruz. And if you found this interesting, share it with a friend, or better yet, start up a discussion with them over a leisurely breakfast together. Let's start normalizing the idea that we deserve better than a rushed, half-hearted meal first thing in the morning. Thank you so much for listening to me ranting about breakfast. I hope you see my point of view, and I would love to know what you think. Otherwise, I will see you next week for another episode of Raising Healthy Mothers. Bye for now.